And Benedetto, you're muted.
It's going to be a great podcast.
Great. Let's then officially start. Today, I have the hosting responsibility. Henrik is out preparing some material for a board meeting next week. So, but instead of Henrik, we have Anis joining. Anis from Cobblestone, one of our long-term clients, but someone who has upped the use of Ento lately, since a quite large portfolio has joined you at Cobblestone, and therefore also Ento. And Anis, you've agreed to take an interview today about energy management and your role at Cobblestone and so forth. So really excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited too.
Great. And do you mind just giving an intro to who you are and who I called you Cobblestone already. I should have said Ina or Ina Denmark. Could you give an intro to why that is so and why you are changing names? What's going on?
Of course, not a problem. So my name is Anis. I'm head of our sustainability management department here at Ina Denmark. We just merged with a Swedish-Finnish property management firm as well. So that's exciting news where we can deliver sustainability products throughout the Nordics. So that's part of the journey we're on here in Ina Denmark. Previously, we've been called Cobblestone, as you mentioned. But yeah, energy management is a big part of our services towards our clients, both commercial, professional investment firms, and residential portfolio as well. I do see that the commercial aspect have a big relevance when it comes to energy monetization. So, and we partnered with you guys in Ento Labs. I mean, there's many reasons for it. One of them is your understanding and the functions in the platform. Some of our clients also chosen you before entering into agreement with us. So that says a lot as well. But yeah, we do a lot of different sustainability services for our clients besides energy monetization. We do energy performance certificates, optimization screenings for energy, tenant satisfaction surveys, and ESG reporting in general. So we have a very holistic understanding of sustainability
of the buildings. Yeah.
Of real estate mainly. Yeah.
And just before we dive into your team's core functions, a brief intro of Ina or Ina Denmark, just as a company, because I think some are fully on board with what an asset manager does and what an external service company like Ina does, and others it's quite new information, and also with how you're working with clients and representing them. So could you just describe that for the more technical on energy side, but not necessarily in that world?
It should be part of my pitch, but I immediately went into what I'm delivering. So in Denmark, we are an administration firm where we do property management for real estate. We do associations as well. So a third of our income comes from different association management of different associations in Denmark. We are mainly in Denmark focused on the Danish real estate. We do have technical management and facility service as well, which is the operational managers on site, and both the cleaning, the biodiversity that's on the property, and we do the property management, financial management of the companies. So we have a lot to do with the tenants, and we help to increase value and for real estate clients. Mostly my department works with the professional investors. So we have big pension funds. We do have investors from out of Denmark, the UK, the US, Germany as well. Big international investors which has real estate investments in Denmark. So we help them manage their portfolio and work close with the asset management. We don't have asset management in-house, so we do have different asset management firms that we work with.
Yeah, and there's this saying that the properties is the largest asset class in the world, so that it's where most finance is tied, and that's exactly your clients that has a hands-off approach to the operations of financial instruments. We are we call buildings that they invest in, but then they have you to do the management.
Exactly. I mean, some clients don't even know what a building is. I mean, they haven't seen the buildings, but they invest in them, and we do everything we can in our capability to have them have a great investment. Short,
act on their behalf, right?
Yeah, exactly. So their interest is in the forefront of what we like to look at.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Great. Well, thanks.
I'm wondering. I have a question because I'm always curious about, like, sometimes we hear that sustainability is somewhat at odds with the economic returns. Like, okay, why should we really like invest in this stuff while we have this capital that we can put into other things that have more ROI, and maybe like sustainability just like fluff, and why should we care? Like, so this kind of dichotomy, right? Like, are they really two different things, like economic returns and sustainability, or can they go hands in hands? Since you're working like in an organization whose goal is kind of to make money, right?
Yeah.
I am really interested in your take on that. Like, how does sustainability play a role in like making your investors make more money?
Of course, I think my understanding of sustainability is very broad. I think there's no sustainable strategy for a portfolio if it doesn't encompass also return on investment. That's one of the biggest or most important sustainable factors for decisions. And then we also add on the social and the environmental aspect, because that's in high demand as well. You wouldn't have a great investment if you don't think about the tenants and how happy they are, or if they have any problems. You wouldn't have a great investment if you are not compliant with EU regulation when it comes to the environment as well. And if we don't look long term, and that's the biggest sustainability topic there is. I mean, you have to look long term for a great investment. So I think that without a sustainable business plan, you have to encompass all of the different aspects of sustainability. So I think they are hand in hand. I mean, when I help our clients with strategy, I don't only look at the environmental aspect. I look at what is a great investment when it comes to return on investment, or happy clients, happy tenants. You have to encompass it holistically as well. So I don't think they are at odds, but I think it's difficult to have equal part in every decision for both sustainability, the economic, and the environmental aspect. Sometimes some aspect weights more in the decision making.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. And then maybe like at some point, if we have time, we can also talk about what you think is the role of regulators in that, because I can expect that if like risk and compliance take a large part in these decisions about sustainability, then like different regulatory environments can turn into like very different decisions in that sense. And I guess like in Europe and maybe probably in Denmark, we have quite forward-looking laws in that sense, but maybe in other markets it can be quite different. And it's, I think it's a very interesting topic.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting. I was at the PropTech symposium yesterday where we talked about supply chain and what we should expect in the future. And if our clients doesn't look at the future aspect or the future thinking of climate change and how supply chain are going to affect your investment, they would be, it would hit them hard in the future, and not even in the long future, but in the short future as well. We already see different aspects. Earthquakes in Denmark a couple of days ago. We did see a storm flood a year ago as well, fluvial flooding in Jutland. So it affects real estate every day. And when we have tenants that can't leave their building because of electric outage, I mean, it's difficult. And it's going to be a deal breaker, a license to operate in the future, to have every aspect of sustainability, both the environmental, economic, and social aspect into account. And I think the legislation is is built to move our industry forward little by little. Sometimes it goes a bit too fast for some people, and there's a lot of investments based on these decisions. But if we don't do it, all of the real estate is going to be in jeopardy in the future. So yeah, I think you're right, and it's a very interesting topic to talk about.
And we should also be wary of time because I know
Yes.
you can talk about sustainability for hours. I've had the opportunity now to work with you for, I guess, 2 years, but especially during the last few months, we've intensified as we've onboarded around 100 commercial buildings together on Ento. So that's a pleasure.
In a very short time.
in quite a short time, yeah. So, but last question on kind of sustainability as a whole, as we just discussed here. How much of your effort goes into what I would kind of classify as optimizing own assets versus risk mitigation because of climate change? Do you see why I'm kind of dividing those two in different views?
No, could you maybe elaborate on that?
Yeah. So for instance, sustainability as a risk, or a climate risk. So there's a risk that sea rise is there will be 1 meter of elevation in the sea, and how can we assess that risk? So that's an external threat. Whereas the other side, which is more on what we do at Ento, is on the optimizing the operations and kind of long-term strategy for the building itself. And I see it as kind of two different ways you can invest. One is the medicine once you are ill, and the other one is the exercise before you get ill. Where do you invest your time?
I mean, we do look and help our clients look ahead of time, because I mean, we can all stop a bleeding in a moment, but we have to be ahead of the legislation, but also the needs from our clients and tenants. So usually, previously in my work, I maybe had a water bill come once a year. And I did see a big spike in water consumption, and then there's been a leakage for several months. And nowadays, with your tool as well, I can have live alarms when it happens. And that is one, stopping the bleeding, but it's also a long-term, in my eyes, a long-term investment, because we reduce the operating cost for the building at the moment. But hopefully, I mean, and that's what I use your strategy module for, is also to look at what we need to implement moving forward. So I think there's many benefits of the different modules you have, or the different products you have in your services. Ones are stopping the bleeding as well, maybe not for the environmental or the physical climate risks, but overflow.
Reducing the long-term CO2 impacts of the house.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so on that note, and it's, I think, one thing that could be really interesting for anyone seeing this, and for us as well, is to better understand your process of choosing Ento for the latest portfolio joining Cobblestone. Because, I mean, you are evaluating different technology providers, and you also told me, Malte, you are more expensive. So why did you choose Ento? What was kind of pros and cons? I would really love to hear that, just from a completely honest perspective from you. What was kind of weighing in on that decision?
I think that you are a full service provider, and that's a very important aspect, especially we have a lot of automations and AI that can help us do our job better. So we don't have to focus on the integration and the power of attorney part, because that's your responsibility. That's your commitment to make sure that the data is available. And then I can focus my technical expertise, my team's technical expertise, in actually optimizing the property, in actually mitigating the risks on the property. So I think, well, one of the biggest or most important factors is that you have your functions are very ahead of many of the competitors, and that's an important part for us when choosing a supplier to energy monetization. I mean, I've seen portfolios where they have integrated to a lot of different utility companies, but when you look at the data, they actually don't receive the data, and they haven't maybe received data in months. In your system, I shortly after not receiving expected data, get a response, and you're on it. So that's a big part of the why we chose you. Another aspect is that you calculate the actual saving that we do on the property, and that's one of the most important aspects for asset management, is to be able to show the effect of what we're doing. So the clients are paying you and me a lot of money for a system and for expertise, for advice, but it's easy for me to say, oh, I saved you a lot of money because I turned off or because I found a leakage, or because I did this energy optimization measure. But with your tool, you can actually give me a concrete number on what have we saved this past year, and the energy savings or energy optimization measures actually improving what we expect them to do. So I mean, theory is great, but when we actually see it on the data, that's even better. To actually see if the improvements we should just actually give the return on investment that we forecasted. So that's a big part of it. And then you also offer a lot of different additional services. I mean, I can get tenant consumption as well through your system without a power of attorney. So I don't have to ask 4,000 tenants in a building for the electricity consumption. I mean, I could get it. I mean, it's delayed, but I can get it for reporting as well. So and the CO2 tenant reports, I can do it easily through your system. So I think that's some of the different aspects that were the driving part for why the client and the asset management chose you guys, and why we recommended this system, even though it's more expensive. But I think in long term, it's not that more expensive, because I mean, I would maybe in time and material have used some of the same time to integrate to different utility providers. So yeah.
I've had a quite a busy week. We've had 3 events in Ento. Luckily, but I only had to participate in 2 of them. But it's been a very, very crazy week. But one of the events was actually focused on a lot of the public sector. And it's funny that the one thing you're highlighting, well, you're highlighting 2 things I hear. We manage the integrations, and you can document the energy savings, which means you can communicate them.
Yeah.
And that last part of it, it's the same thing they're highlighting. We're now working with 40 municipalities out of 98 municipalities in Denmark, and they're highlighting the same things. But one thing that we discussed, and one thing I took up, I just want to make a little short screen share, because that was the exact slide that I think resonated with most during that conference I was doing on Tuesday. And it's funny that you're saying it, because as I said, this was focused on the public sector, but it's the same. This is an example where a client is investing in a new building management system, and it costs around 10,000 euros. It's not a lot of money, but it's still an expense, right? But the thing is that an issue occurs, and you can see that in any kind of energy management system, right? You have graphs of consumption going up and down, but then our system is finding the problem, and then the users are fixing it. And where it really becomes valuable, I don't think really lies in the data. I think it lies in being able to document the saving, because you can communicate those savings. So instead of it being, again, an expense, you can actually document that this BMS system that they invested in is literally a money machine.
Yeah.
Because you could see it as an expense of 10,000 euros, but they have documented savings here for 55,000 Danish DKK per year and 100 or 50,000 DKK heating savings. So around 15,000 euros per year in savings with an investment that, mind you, cost them around 10,000 euros. So, and if this asset, this BMS system has a lifetime of 20 years,
Yeah.
The net present value of that investment is crazy, right?
Of course.
It's plus 1 million DKK.
And then it becomes a no-brainer, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I mean, what we also usually do is to integrate the expense for our clients until the tenants. So we integrate the fees in the tenant agreements, and then we can move the expense over to the tenants as well, because they are actually oftentimes, at least with professional investment firms, the ones which benefit from this service.
Yeah.
And of course, the reason why you have a energy management system is different from municipality, because it's actually their own expenses they are paying. But as you're saying, it's a win-win situation for the whole supply chain. What you also do, and I didn't express that as well, and you probably showed it in your slides, the municipality, but you also, when you identify a problem, you suggest what the reasons are for maybe the increase in consumption, or you at least use AI to predict what are actually the difficult parts. And also, just by doing that, you can help us in identifying the problem and mitigating it. Usually I work with different energy platforms as well. You collect a lot of data, and then you look at the data, and you have to be very knowledgeable about energy to be able to identify the problems. And then from there, you have to have a lot of knowledge to identify what you have to do based on it. And it's nice to have feature that you actually help us in directing maybe what kind of issue it is. And we can, and that's the great part, we can log every action we take. I can send an email out to the operational manager on site and say, hey, there's a leakage, hours after I identify it, or in minutes after I identify it, sorry, and hours after we can have mitigated the issue. So I think that's the strongest, one of the strongest functions in the system, is that we can communicate the value of our service and your product, which would have been, I mean, my service would have been twice as high if I had to do it all by myself. So that's an important aspect as well.
I'm super happy you're bringing up the smiles,
You may
energy
be
savings.
talking to the developer of that feature.
Yeah.
Apart from that, which I think it's fine to get recognition for that, but I think like I'm a little bit of a nerd in this specific niche, because I did a PhD specifically in the application of machine learning to verify energy efficiency savings, and it's a very small niche. Like, not many people know what this is, not many people are interested in it. And in this like kind of sector or cult, as you want to call it, one of the things that was always coming up in the conversations that I was having was like, what is the one biggest problem of energy efficiency investments compared to, for example, investing in renewables and or like distributed generation? And that is that renewables have a meter. Renewables have something that is telling you every hour how much you're producing, and then that is directly translatable with no uncertainty into what you're getting out of it.
Yes.
And energy efficiency, on the other end, like specifically if you don't have hourly data, it's all a little messy. You need to do these counterfactual calculations, and like investors might not get them. Investors are unsure of what they're getting out of the capital that they invested, and that makes like all energy efficiency investments look less appealing. And I think like on the one end, it's like a structural problem of energy efficiency. Like, okay, you will never have a meter that tells you how much energy efficiency is delivering. But on the other end, I always thought it's also like a matter of communicating it in the right way, because we have the math to do like a good calculation of that, but if we don't put it in a way that it's actually okay, understandable, clear, well communicated, then you are not able to get that investment out, and you're not getting the savings. So I'm really glad you're bringing up the topic of actually the power of just being able to communicate the numbers to the right people.
Yeah, and another aspect is that, I mean, I have had clients which have asked me, oh, how many submetering should we put up to get the information? And that investment all of alone is an enormous aspect, which when you have to expand, or if you have to expand to other buildings as well. And the information, I believe the information is readily available for you at the metering level, main metering level. I mean, and if you use AI, and that's how we should be using AI, is to based on the amount of data, the historic data, we should be able to take out or at least predict what could be the issue, and not go in and use large amounts of money on submetering every place where we can imagine. I mean, at one ventilation system, at a solar panel system, I've seen for hundreds of thousands of crowns investment in submetering, and maybe it's a large investment for some people, but it's significantly smaller than having a lot of different readings physically on site, and it's scalable when you do it on a main metering level. So I think, I mean, AI should be used to calculate the or at least predict what could be wrong. I mean, that's the strongest part of the solution.
I guess I'm glad that you're bringing this up and not me. I have gotten a lot of people say, "Oh, Mando, you're against submeters," and so forth. But so I'm just super happy that you're bringing it up. And I think a lot of the people that have invested in submeters are realizing that it is of limited value. So
it's a big OpEx as well moving forward, because I mean, some of the biggest disruptors are when we then don't get data because there's a defect in the submetering, and then you can pay twice for the same solution. And I mean, if the main metering is off, it's up to the utility company to come and clear the problem. So I mean, your both your capex and opex are going to increase based on that way of moving forward, or that mentality to data. But I mean, I'm not saying that submetering doesn't have its part in identifying some problems. I mean, there's a place for submetering in some buildings, but mainly it doesn't make sense for when we talk about energy management, energy optimization, because I mean, the data is there just on the aggregate level.
Yeah. And then it delays action is what I see as well. Won't name them, but I talked to someone yesterday at the conference we were both at, and they weren't doing active energy management right now because they were installing submeters. I was like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the portfolio we onboarded a couple of months ago, I mean, 100 properties within less than a month. We had most of the meters up and running, you are live. I mean, it didn't take more than a couple of hours. Then we have all of the electricity in the portfolio. But for the heating and water metering, we were live quite frankly very, very fast. Usually I take 3 months of onboarding. We did it in less than a month. And if we had to do the submetering, I mean, on some properties, I don't even have the quotes yet, even though I asked a couple of months ago. And then for them to implement it, it's going to be months again. So, and you don't get the historic data as well. So, I mean, that one is missing. You can only predict or suggest the improvements a couple of years into the future, because then you have the data to support your decisions. So I mean, but there's different ways of going about it. I just think that there has to be a return on investment for the clients, because then it doesn't make sense. I mean, and there has to be an upside and quite frankly, a limited amount of capex to be live. So there's different benefits. Yeah,
Of course. Okay. I didn't expect us to go in the rabbit hole of submeters.
No, sorry.
one last thing I want to discuss with you, Anis. I think we lost Benedetto. He also didn't want to talk more submeters. No, but
I understand. Some people it's boring.
yeah. Hey, Benedetto, you're back. You're back online.
Sorry.
We are stopping the discussion of submeters. You can join it.
Yeah, you can.
But what we will discuss is something that I think holds your dearly. Can you say that? Is the integration of multiple kind of solutions. And I think a lot of SaaS software companies now have the capability to expand their product offering. And we at Ento, of course, have seen that as well. And we did talk about it briefly already with sustainability data. So tenant data is now something we support. Energy performance certificates is something we have supported for a while at Ento, and then of course long-term planning. So Anis, I don't know, could I get you to talk a little bit about the value you see in this kind of coupling different products in one?
Yeah, I think you're quite right. I mean, there's a maturity in the market. I mean, there's a lot of different companies, prop tech companies, which are doing a lot of different things and have their own niches. But I think for at least us as a operational company, we need to minimize the amount of vendors that we use, because I mean there's plenty of compliance in our own house, and that we have to make our vendors comply with. So for me, it's quite simply a simplification of the systems. I mean, when we have integrated the EPCs in your system, why should we then use another system for the strategy module when we do have all of the different integrations with the utility providers? Let's use that information when it comes to the OES or the sustainability tenant data, because then we can map quite easily where do we have the integrations and where don't we have the integrations. So I think it simplifies my way of working when I don't have to have 5, 6, 7 suppliers for the services, because then I have to export it from your system and export it from another system and start mapping how it fits together. And even though, I mean, sometimes the assets doesn't have the same name in one system and another system, I mean, so I think that, I mean, there's things that you are very, very good at. I mean, the energy monetization is one of your, I mean, that's
what starts the company.
Yeah, of course. And then there's things that maybe you're trying to establish, that we're working on also establishing together as well, but where you're moving forward. But I think you're moving forward, at least with our suggestions, very fast, and can catch up to many of the competitors, which have maybe had their core function at that service. But I think that's at least the benefit of having it all in one system, in one system. Platform.
Any thoughts on this, Benedetto, from a developer side or from a kind of a product strategic side?
Yeah, I think, let's see if I can avoid being controversial. Like
Please be controversial. Go ahead.
Like what you're describing is only possible because we decided to start from the difficult things. And maybe some of these other competitors that you mentioned are either only focusing, or they decided to start with the easy things, which are maybe this analysis of energy performance certificates, or just getting aggregated monthly data and giving you some level of reporting with that. But that is, of course, not that much difficult. And that's why we are able to catch up so fast when we have invested years doing the hard stuff, which is building these integrations to get the hourly data up and running really quickly, building our machine learning models that are able to flag the alerts really quickly whenever they come up and send them in a good way, collaborate with our customers in order to understand what is then the easiest and most user-friendly way for them to get the alerts and act on those, because that's ultimately what we are interested in, right? Like we are not interested in providing an energy management system. Like nobody cares about an energy management system. People care about being able to do their job, which is get savings, limit energy waste, and report on the data, right? For most of them, and then also plan into the future. And so like we started from the idea, I guess, or maybe like Mel and the others started, and then I joined a little later, but with the idea of being able to provide our users and customers with like a possibility to do their job better.
Hmm.
And then we learn together with our users and our customers how to do that. And that is like not an easy thing.
Yeah.
And I believe that is also our like competitive advantage, and it's also what we are doing with you now on the analysis of the strategic long-term planning and the energy performance certificates, is like collaborating with our users really closely almost every day during the week to come define a solution that is actually that makes sense for us, that we can deliver to a large amount of customers at the same time, but also solves the specific pain point that you are experiencing every day. Because in the end, like an energy management platform is like useless if no one is using it, right? So
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest problems with many of the PropTech companies out there. And sometimes I think maybe you have also fallen into that category as well. But sometimes PropTech companies create solutions or needs where there's no need for it. I mean, and functions because it's nice to, but is it a need to? And for me, at least, I mean, I've had companies or our real estate investment firms invest in systems which they are not using, but expect us to use. And then I would often ask them, but how should I use it? I mean, what's the reason? I mean, the data is being manipulated, so it's not raw data, and it's being manipulated in a way that it's not beneficial for me. I had to clean up. I have to spend a lot more time cleaning up the data than just if I had the raw data available, for example, through a utility provider. So, I mean, I think that's some of the aspects I at least try when also talking to you about functionalities. I mean, what is going to help us in our day-to-day? And let's identify those problems, those issues. How can I be more effective at my work? And let's see if you can create those function instead of you coming with a function and then telling me how to use it. I mean, sometimes we create functionalities where there's no need for it, and I would rather like to have the data being right and then putting on top of that than having a lot of functionalities and estimates of consumption and I mean the data is available and I mean so that's my take on some PropTech companies and how they create
How they
things.
operate.
Yeah, how they operate.
I think that's a really good place to end the conversation. I think there is a fundamental change in how technology is being developed, which means that speed increases, which means that we can output more software, which has some implications. So both we can create more software, but we need to create the right software. And right now, I'm also replying to some tender documentation for another client. And I think that is one of the cases where this is really going to be difficult because everyone can then apply to a tender, basically giving exactly what you wanted according to the tender.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you get good software. So I think we're just going to enter a whole different phase, both with tendering, but also with how products are being developed, co-developed. And some are, of course, also saying that companies like INA could create a lot of software themselves, but then they also have to be maintained. And there, truly, there's a skill in understanding what the described need is and what the good solution is to develop. And I think it's almost a shame we don't have Henrik here, because I think that is a lot of his expertise as the CEO of Ento, but also just forming the product. I can't tell you how many times he's asked the why when I come with a feature request, and he's just keep saying, but why, but how? And I'm like, dude, just make it as I described. And he has really challenged that. And I think that is going to be the difficult part because it's truly a skill you have to learn. Benedetto, you're really good at it as well, but it's it's something that comes with a lot of years of software development experience. And that's not in the vibe coding tools and not in the get a tender specification and then just put it into a software development and say go. That is coming with iteration and with product and design and use of products. So just my thoughts on these things, and I think you brought them up really nicely, both from a customer perspective, but also from a technology developer's perspective.
Thank you. And thank you for hearing out and all of my many inputs in the conversation. I could go on script very fast and talk about different aspects more deeply, but maybe there's a podcast for that as well.
Yeah, we'll make another one. We'll just call it Rant. Ennis's Rant.
Yes.
For an hour. Yeah. Okay. Well, perfect. Thanks for joining us, and also to you, and see you.